a story on my very first, well, that's a good story. On my very first dog.
Yes.
I was 4 years old, and my dad brought me a little snow white poodle dog. I mean, he was a shoe shine special. And everywhere I went, when I went outside, he was right beside of me. It didn't matter where I went, what I done, he was right there with me. Best buddy I ever had. And then after Dad died, food got real scarce and just didn't have enough food to feed the little dog. And because one of us kids needed it instead of that dog. And my mother said she hunted for a half an hour and finally found one .22 shell. That's all she could find in the house. And she had my brother Ross to take my little dog way over on the mountain and dispose of it. Well, Mom said she heard the .22 go off, and then something came over, and that was just an awful feeling about what she had done. Then, every day for 6 months, when I went outside, I was hollering and calling for my little dog. No dog, gone. Mom said that just about make her cry every time I do it, because I really love that little old dog. And it wasn't worth 5 cents for nothing. Just something for me to hang out with. And I went on for at least 6 months. And Mom told me that that was one of her big regrets in life. She told me 3 regrets, and that was one of them. But she told me 3 of her regrets, and the 4th one she said, I'm taking to my grave. But that was my first dog. And
what was his name?
I don't even remember. It could have been Cotton, Snowball. He was white, so I don't remember the little dog's name. Of course, I was just 4.5 years old when I got the dog, just before my dad died. And my dad had hound dogs, but then after the hound dogs got disposed of, gave them away to somebody right after Dad died. No food to feed them. And now my second dog, my sister brought it to me. And
which sister?
My sister Ruth brought me a little pup. It was just big enough to eat on its own, solid food. And it was part beagle, rabbit dog, and part red-bone hound. He grew up to be, you would have swore he was part a pit bull. Big, stout, stocky thing, looked like a bulldozer. And there wasn't a dog on the creek that could whoop him. And so I made him into a coon dog. And at night, I never had to go, summer, winter, and all. When it got dark, he'd go hunting by himself. Now he only had to walk just a few yards to the woods, timber. He didn't like have to go a mile. And he'd tree a coon, and Mom would wake me up at night. Lester, your dog's got another coon tree. I'd yell back, what time is it, Mom? Oh, if it was after 3 o'clock, I'd say, well, let's just go back to sleep. I'll wait till daylight. Leave that hound dog barking. Now, he'd just bark about 5 times, and then he'd wait 20 minutes, and then he'd bark 5 more times. And that's the way he could stay all night and wouldn't make his throat sore.
How old were you when you got the dog?
I was 13 when I got the dog, and then by the time I was 14, he was treeing coons. He'd tree squirrels. He'd chase rabbits. He'd chase anything in the woods. I think I could have made a bird dog out of it. But he was a real good hunting dog, and he lived to old age. And
What was his name?
his name was Pedro, Pedro.
Pedro.
So, but he was a fine hunting hound, and I had him trained. He was super smart. If I wanted a dog, if I was sneaking up on something, like a squirrel or something, I'd motion for him to get behind me, and he'd get behind me and just sneak along real slow and easy. If I tell him to stop, he'd stop. I had him trained, but normally a big old raccoon worked him over one time when he was young, and that got him to hating them so bad that he wanted them all dead, and he went after them when it got dark too. That was my second dog.
How did you feed him? Did you go to the local farm store or grocery store and buy a big old bag of dog food and bring home?
Dog food had not been invented yet. If it was, I didn't know. He ate what I ate. If I had beans and taters and cornbread, that's what he got. And I'd feed him 2-3 times a day. And he saved my life once. Oh, you got to hear this. Mom always made sure that my dog, old Pedro, had his rabies shot, because rabies was a big thing in eastern Kentucky. And me and old Pedro was tending our own business, walking along the road one day, and here come a dog with a rabid dog. That means he's got rabies, slobbering at the mouth. You know, he was and running at a very fast trot. Now, I didn't know what was going on. Here I was barefooted, had and this dog was. I stayed over on one side of the road to let the dog go by on the other side. Well, he didn't want to. He wanted to make a lunge at me. Being that I was Pedro's best buddy, you ain't biting my buddy. So Pedro took a big bite out of this dog just before he bit me. Knocked him over a hill and all of this. And the dog actually saved my life. And no, Pedro, he didn't like any kind of dog. I think he liked himself real good, but no other dog. And so that's one time that dog actually saved my life. And but it was fun growing up and having a good hunting dog. And
when you were growing up, well, before your dad died, when he had dogs, did the dogs live in the house?
no,
Or when you were a kid
No.
and your mom allowed dogs,
No.
did you ever have a
No.
dog in the house?
no cat, no dog ever set foot in the house. If it did, it got a beating. They knew better. They just I don't like cats and dogs. They have a place in this world. With me, it's outside. And I've got nothing. If whoever wants to have a dog in their house, let them have it. That's their business. My business is no cat, no dog. Now, I have had friends to bring their dogs into my house. They'd be on a leash and they'd be well behaved. And yes, they've been dogs all through my house.
You've
But
had
they-
us bring baby goats in your house, but they don't live there. Yep.
Yes.
To show him and mom some of the new goats, we had to bring them in the house, but Yeah, I never grew up with animals in the house. A goldfish in a bowl.
That's what you had.
Tim was allowed a bird when they first moved to Indiana and lived in a apartment over Gerton's Autos. That was probably the only time that was ever allowed.
And Tim had a pet turtle. We was feeding a little bit of turtle about the size of a silver dollar. And down in this glass container, we had him in an old fish bowl, had him a big rock in there. He could climb up on that rock. And you could swat a fly and carry that fly in your finger over and hold it right in front of this turtle, and he'd reach out and grab this fly right out of your fingers and eat it. And we fed him flies and ants and you name it. He'd eat anything you put in a jar with him. And kept growing and growing. And then in October, before the water got too cold, we took him and dumped him into the river so that he could hibernate. But that's the only turtle we've had. While growing up in Kentucky, now this is a good one. We had one goldfish in just a little old goldfish container thing, and it's in the wintertime, and there wasn't a whole lot of water in this thing, and it froze solid with ice, goldfish and all. Mom said, he'll be all right if you'll just leave it alone and let it warm up little by little. You ain't gonna believe this story. After all that ice melted and that water warmed up, that old fish took right off to swimming. Now isn't that a knee slapper? So if your goldfish freezes solid, just throw him out slow and easy. Yeah, I had a lot of fun growing up. And here's another thing. If I was to do it over again, I'd want to come up the same way. Now, I do want to tell you, I'd make a few changes here. But I lived a good life. It was hard, very difficult. But it was a good life, and had plenty of friends, and had good school teachers and good preachers, and it was just a good life. I'd do it over and snap your finger. I would really hate to have to be born right now and live in today's society. It's a different world, and I wouldn't have liked it. Bye.